know what to expect Friday night from this team?
No, I thought Saturday was good. I thought we played together. I thought we played really hard. Our execution was probably what you would expect. 6 new players that have all received new information and new habits in a really positive way. Been very encouraged with who they are, their character, their willingness to work. They're all thus far great teammates. Our staff has done a fabulous job of finding humans that fit how we operate on a daily basis. And I think that they've also done a really good job identifying where we were deficient last year and adding that to our group. And I think our returning players realize that as well, which is always a good sign.
You've played 2 pretty good teams in that secret scrimmage the last 2 years, and I'm guessing that's by design because you want to see what you have.
Yeah, I think I'm going to tell Johnny tomorrow that this will be our last time playing Kingsville. Obviously, I've offended the other 9 satellite schools by only playing them. But also, we've done it 4 years, and that's probably enough. And you guys know that you have 2 opportunities. You can use them how you want. They can both be scrimmages. They can both be exhibitions. You can split them. And then now there's a different category. You can play a charity game with some processes involved in that. And so I think that we've probably went about it the right way. It started in year 1. We wanted to at least coach our guys in an exhibition so they knew what a game was like. Year 2 was COVID. Last year we stayed with what it was. And only thing that I've learned on this year is we probably scrimmaged too late because we've only had 3 days of work since the scrimmage going into the exhibition. I would like there to be more absorption of the lessons from the scrimmage. And then on the backside of it, you have to take Tuesday, November the 8th off because it's election day. So we decided to play game number 1 on Monday. So now we're going to play the exhibition on Friday, work on Sunday, play on Monday, take off on Tuesday. It's a little too choppy. And you can't control all of that with some of those pieces in place. But next year I'm going to try to study it a little bit beforehand and see if we can get it maybe a little better.
Buzz, how much bigger is this team going to play this year with the height that you had coming?
Yeah, we are a little taller. I think we're more wide than we are more tall. But those wide guys have an ability to play really physical. Saturday, we're calling it the big lineup and the lean lineup so we don't offend anybody. We had surprising success in both. You want to have the ability to do both, and then you want to have the ability to mix and match. And we don't have enough data or evidence to know exactly which one is which, but it's one of the things that we have charted through 24 practices and 1 scrimmage. When we're playing, quote, big, how are we doing? When we're playing lean, how are we doing? And when we mix and match, how are we doing? And the one thing that I've learned on that, it's still a small sample size, but I don't necessarily want to know just how we're doing in those groupings. I kind of want to know what is the opponent doing to us in those groupings. And so we only have 1 game. And so it doesn't really say much because if you were looking at it from a percentage standpoint, are we going to play big a third of the game and lean a third of the game and mix and match a third of the game, like I don't know yet. And we've also tinkered this week, Tuesday, and we will a little bit today, playing really small and moving one of those big guards to the 4 like we've done in the past. Because in some ways, that's a hard thing to guard as well. So we're behind in that, but we're bigger and we will be able to play bigger. And I think some of the new things that we're doing offensively probably fit that, where if we want to bump down or if we want to bump up, they've both had enough reps, whatever group they may be in, and they have a comfort level with it. And so that's encouraging.
What drew you to want to teach some classes this fall?
Yeah, obviously both of my parents were educators my whole life. My parents were divorced when I was a baby, but both of them were in academics their whole career. When I was at Virginia Tech, I got really close with the previous president, who had an incredible story. And when he was the president, he taught a class. When he retired, that class continued on. And it was under the premise he still wanted to stay connected to students. He had gotten his doctorate degree from MIT, went to Kentucky when Adolph Rupp was the coach there, got his doctorate degree at 21 years old from MIT. Really, really bright. And he taught at K-State before he went to Virginia Tech. And he wanted to stay close to the students, so he taught a class. It kind of evolved into a business class, and then it turned into a leadership class. And so typical coach speak type engagements, and a few people had heard me speak, and that's kind of what started it. It's through the core of cadets. I knew the commandant, and then it was the guy that ran the business school, and it had turned into a 4,000 level leadership class, and the cadets could take it, but it was more in the business and engineering school. And so I don't have a doctorate degree, so I could only, the rules, if you don't have a doctorate and you're teaching a 3-hour theory class, I think you can only teach less than 50%. And so I taught 49% of the class. It ended up being like 9 or 10 classes. And then the real teacher taught the other ones. And it just blossomed into a lot of different things, a lot of different relationships. It was great reps for me to live in a different world. And so when the guys that run the Leadership Institute here that you met, when they came, and I think they had found out about what I just mentioned, and they knew the commandant at Virginia Tech, whose son lives here in College Station. And that's kind of how it all started. And yeah, I'm always searching for what I'm going to do next. And so selfishly, I wanted to see, and I hadn't done it here. I did it 3.5 years at Virginia Tech, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And that was a lot of relationships and a lot of fun. I got to sit in on a lot of the academia meetings and stuff because I was adjunct professor. So yeah, I was happy and thankful that they asked.
Learn some new stuff that you can bring to the locker room here.
Yeah, it's interesting, like so much, this, Travis, because you've been around me enough, but like so much of what I say to our guys in that regard, it's not really specific to ball. I can spin it and make it, but basketball is just a vehicle that we're using, or that I'm using. So if I want to make it about basketball, I can, but as much as I can, I hope that I'm trying to help their life. And so to go into a different world than the one that I live in and try to figure out how can I spin it in a way that it applies to them, but the actual message and what I'm trying to teach, it's really the same. But it's good for me to be out of my comfort zone and be around people that don't really care about ball and may or may not even know who I am. You know, it's easy to talk to our guys. I know them. I love them. I know their families. I know their people. So that's a little different deal. So those are good reps for me for sure.
Coaches, recruiting players out of the transfer portal become even more competitive than recruiting the high school recruits?
Sure. Yeah, it's not even close. Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on all of that. I study all of it. In some regards, the recruiting rules are very archaic. The calendar of NCAA recruiting, it really doesn't apply anymore because of there's a new category of potential recruits, and obviously that's through the transfer portal. Well, like in our situation last year, March the 31st was our last game. And so 2 days later, the Final Four was happening. Well, during our postseason run, I could look it up. 60 to 70 kids per day are going in the transfer portal. Well, I can't leave. We're still playing. We were in Tampa for a week. Well, let's just say 250 kids went in the portal. We're playing every day. So as a head coach, I'm not going to spend much time to it. Other head coaches change how they want to spend time. But then we play 5 games in the NIT and spend a week in New York during that 5-game stretch. So I couldn't go see anyone until after the dead period, which is 5-7 days after the championship game of the Final Four. Well, we may be recruiting and seeing someone for the first time who's been in the portal for 3 weeks. We're behind, right? Because we've been playing. And so I don't have all the answers because there's not enough history to know what's right. And there's a part of me that I think over the last 16 years, part of what we've been good at is growing guys and developing guys. That's not going to necessarily apply in the portal. But if you're growing and developing guys, but you're competing against 21 and 22-year-olds every night, no matter how many schools they've been to, that's a hard thing too. And I've coached and recruited more junior college players than any Power 5 head coach in the country in my career as a head coach. I went to junior college. I'm proud of that. I'm the only Power 5 coach that went to junior college. So that means a lot to me. And so every year there's been at least one junior college player on our roster, wherever we've been. Quentin Jackson, nobody asked about Quentin Jackson when he got here. But if you look at the last semester he was in college for us, you could argue he was one of the better players in the country, was second team all league. But that was a process. That was a growth. That was a development. So it's for sure changed how you spend your days in recruiting. It's for sure changed how you spend your time in recruiting. It's for sure changed who you're on the phone with in recruiting. If I'm talking to you and you have relationships with multiple prospects, well, I probably need to develop a relationship with you that is ongoing instead of me making my first call to you when one of your prospects goes in the portal. Well, when I go recruiting, maybe I should meet you somewhere. Hey, how you doing? You want to go to this game? So it's changed everything, but we're still abiding by the old rules and the old calendar. And so I think that's why the transformation committee, that's probably one of the things they're trying to figure out is how is this all going to work? And you can transfer once. Well, Twitter says that that's the case. The case is you can transfer as many times as you want and be immediately eligible. So do you want to sign a high school player who can transfer at any moment in time? But the flip side is, do you want to sign a transfer who, in truth, he can transfer as well? You know, like going into the portal last year, the very first recruiting class that you could recruit from the portal, you couldn't go recruit. It was still COVID specific. It was still all on Zoom. And we knew it was coming. And I thought one of the ways that we could maybe create a niche was, of the portal guys, we want the youngest portal guys with the highest room for growth. Henry Coleman. Henry Coleman potentially has a chance to be an all-league player during his career here. Has a chance, to be an all-league academic guy here. Probably couldn't find a better representation of what you want in a student athlete on or off the floor. Yeah, and so he came here and he's got 3 years of eligibility. That doesn't mean that signing someone that only has one was the play, but I thought that entering the transfer portal market, the best thing we could do would be to accumulate the best and the youngest in the portal so that those guys could grow with you, with Mo as a freshman, with Four as a freshman, and now you start kind of growing together. And I hope that some of that takes place this year. If you look at all of the guys, we signed guys that have multiple years left in the portal. Solomon Washington was Louisiana Player of the Year. Now he's a freshman. So you hope that there's some trajectory with some level of staggeredness on an opportunity for each of those guys to have a role.
What are some of the things that would constitute a successful life?
Yeah. We need to contest threes at a higher rate than we've done thus far in practice. A good team will contest 70% of threes. We were poor at that last Saturday. I would say that would be one. That's one thing that we've emphasized. We need to defensive rebound at a higher clip than we did last year. That's been an emphasis all along. And then we need to play with a low turnover rate. New style of play in some regards in the early clock segment of possessions. Obviously, new ball handlers and the symmetry and the togetherness of all that. So I would say those would be a low turnover rate, a high contest rate, and a high defensive rebound percentage.
How many different starting lineups could you put on the court tomorrow? Will we see those the next 3 or 4 games?
Yeah, I think we'll probably keep twirling them around a little bit. It's not necessarily because one's good or one's bad, just twirling them around so we can kind of figure out which one could eventually evolve into being the best. We're actually doing it a little bit in practice. You know, we'll play a game and here's the teams. All right, now let's play another game. Here's the teams. And we'll play, like I was talking to him, we'll play big versus lean. And then we'll play mix versus mix. And we just kind of keep trying to figure it out. Hopefully by the time we get to Myrtle Beach, we have a little bit more conviction than we do now. I like a lot of them, to be honest with you. And I hope that depth is one of our strengths. And then that way, if they're not doing good, we can just sub somebody else in. And hopefully there's not a drop-off. And potentially, like some coaches do, and I've for sure done it in the past, maybe leave one of them good guys over there to start, so when he comes in, you're even better. And a lot of that, I think, last year was a positive with Q. Yeah, I think it's real important, and we'll try to treat tomorrow that way. I know it'll be our first rep, and it doesn't count relative to winning and losing, but we only won by 4 last year. I think they made 12 threes on us, so contested shot percentage will be in effect tomorrow. Yeah, unique schedule. I think we play 7 games in November. And I think 4 of those 7 are on the road. So that's never happened to us here. And so for sure, the next 8 days and the 3 times that we play with fans here, we do need to set the tone, not only for here, but what we're trying to do this month.
That's a wrap.
Thank you, guys.